The I Know What You Did Last Summer franchise is about to make its return to theaters after nearly 30 years. So thank you for joining me here as I begin my review series for I Know What You Did Last Summer. This original film came out in 1997. It's one, along with its sequel, that I watched a lot as a kid. I was big into horror from the time I was like 4 or 5, and those original 2 movies were on constant rotation on VHS for me. I still have never seen the third one, and I know for a fact that there are some of you who are saying, "What do you mean third one?" It exists, and I'm gonna have to watch it soon. But I always really enjoyed those first 2 as a kid, and I still think this one holds up really well as a fun 90s slasher. Sometimes it gets a bit of a bad rap, and I think unfairly so. So many people compare it to Scream. I know they did at the time of release because it was right after Scream. It's the same writer, Kevin Williamson, although it is based on a book, and Kevin Williamson wrote this before he wrote Scream. And the success of Scream is what allowed him to finally get this actually made. And because it was similar to Scream, but not as good, and it wasn't as subversive and meta and unique as Scream, people are like, it's just a slasher. But when you're judging it for what it is, I think it's a fun slasher. So let's get into the things that I like about the original I Know What You Did Last Summer. First of all, I really like the way the story and the mystery are handled here. It's a great idea for a slasher, although it's taken from a book. The movie diverges pretty heavily, but you have these 4 teenagers about to really get their lives started after graduating high school. They make a horrible mistake, accidentally running a guy over. They don't know what to do about it. They decide to dump the body into the ocean, and then 1 year later, they receive mysterious messages from somebody who seems to know what they did the previous summer. And it's a great way to establish these morally gray characters. They're not perfect by any means. They do something really fucked up. Although, primarily, you can blame Ryan Phillippe's character, Barry, and it was an accident. But they did do it. They did cause this man to seemingly die. They decide to just dump him. Nobody will ever know the truth about what happened. Even when it turns out he's actually not dead, in the chaos, they knock him into the water anyway. Barry dives down there to get the goddamn tiara back. That guy's still alive. And they're like, oh well, we're gonna leave. So I like how it immediately puts them in this difficult moral dilemma that has you questioning what you might do in that situation and might make you think they even deserve what's coming to them. And of course, there are varying degrees of assholes from Barry to Julie. And I really like that variety of the characters, and I really like the actors that they got here. Jennifer Love Hewitt, I've always loved her for many reasons. And she's the one who doesn't want to go along with this. She wants to go to the police. She's kind of pressured into going along with their scheme, which she heavily blames herself for. She's feeling this intense guilt for the entire next year. She's not doing well in school. People sometimes give Julie shit because they think Helen, Sarah Michelle Gellar's character, is more interesting. And in many ways, she is. But I still really like Jennifer Love Hewitt in this movie, and I think Julie is good at being proactive once things actually get started. The whole, what are you waiting for thing, just yelling out, being tired of the bullshit, like just come get me, come do it, you coward. Trying to figure out the mystery and what's going on, who this guy is, until the third act, which I'll talk about later. I really like her character. I think what is interesting about Helen, though, is that she does have the harder fall. She wants to move to New York and become an actress and have a family, and she has all of this planned out perfectly, and it immediately falls apart. We don't get to see it, we don't know the details, but we can just tell that most of these kids have been racked by guilt, and it has prevented them from actually succeeding in their lives the way they hoped they would. So she's right back home, just working in her family's store with no prospects in sight. And Sarah Michelle Gellar is really good. She had this, Scream 2, and the start of Buffy all in the same year. That was a good year for her in terms of horror. Freddie Prinze Jr.'s Ray is more of the everyman. He's not as wealthy as the other characters. He just becomes a fisherman like his father. And then Ryan Phillippe is kind of unbothered. He seems fine. But everybody's good. I love the cast all around. Good supporting cast too. Johnny Galecki, Anne Heche, a lot of people you recognize. The cast does a good job at bringing this charm and likability to the characters, even though they started the story by doing this awful thing, especially with Sarah Michelle Gellar. That's a character that could have easily been written to just be the bitchy one. She's the hot beauty queen who's going to go off and become an actress. But she feels like a grounded, real person. Even Barry, who's the most over the top of them all, you understand why he's so upset by what happened, and he seems like kind of just a spoiled rich brat, so they all do feel pretty grounded and real. I like the structure of this movie, how the fisherman is just kind of messing with them in various ways until the fated day of July 4th. And then once he actually starts killing them, that's all kinda one long sequence, broken up into smaller sequences. Like from killing Barry, that leads directly into Helen being driven home, which leads to him chasing her, and then right from there is when Julie and Ray confront him on the boat. It's kind of like this one long sequence of events that all happens on July 4th, making the second half or last third or whatever of this movie just constantly moving and really entertaining. And there's a good amount of suspense as you're not sure exactly what he's going to do to them and when. There's some good chase scenes like Helen's through the department store, through this alley, like it goes on for a really long time. Keeps it very engaging and fun. And I think they do a good job with the mystery. It's hard for me to judge it because I first saw it as a really young child, so I wasn't smart. I wasn't piecing things together. I just was along for the ride. But watching it now, even though the guy is alive, last time we saw him in the water, so you could very easily have the thought, oh, I guess he's just alive then, and it's just gonna be him, which is the case. I think it does enough to lead you on other little rabbit trails and make you second guess yourself. Like they find the body of David Egan, and as far as we know, that's the guy. He had that outfit, he had that little necklace or whatever it was that said I love you on it. It's like, okay, they found his body, so I guess he is dead. And now there's this mysterious Billy Blue person who visited David's sister, and the suspect list is increasing. You get the whole backstory with David and Susie, and it's actually starting to make a lot of sense. And there's even the red herring with Ray, where it's actually possible. You don't know. Maybe he snapped. Maybe he is doing this because his guilt has gotten to him so much. There are enough possibilities for what could be going on that it keeps it interesting. And I love the fact that before they dump the body, Julie suggests checking his wallet so they can find out who he is. And that's another interesting moral question. Would you want to know so that you can kind of honor the person in the best way you can, at least knowing who they are and acknowledging them? Or for your own personal, emotional reasons, would you just want to like, nah, I don't even want to know who it is. I just love, though, that if they had gone along with her idea and checked his wallet, it would have been so much easier. They wouldn't have had to worry about any of that shit. They would have known who he was. I do like the setting, this kind of fishing village, the look of the fisherman. It's pretty simple, but sometimes that's all you need. It's effective. Again, these are movies that I've been very familiar with for a very long time. So to me, this is an iconic slasher villain because I have just grown up with it. I understand somebody saying, it's just a guy in a slicker. That's boring. But to me, it works. To me, it fits with the theme. I like the way the movie looks. There are some really nice shots. Director Jim Gillespie did a good job. But to get into my mixed to negative thoughts, I've never been a big fan of the hook, even though it works with the theme and it makes this stand out. It just seems inefficient. Like a knife or any just basic sharp object is so much easier with the stabbing and the slicing. You gotta hook somebody, and I feel like that's just extra effort that you've gotta put in. And if there was a guy coming at me with a hook, I feel like I would just be confused, which might be the exact opening they need in order to distract me and kill me with the hook. So I guess it would work. Like, unless you're a ghost with a hook hand and a bunch of bees, that's a whole different story. If you're just a guy with a hook, I don't know. I associate the hook with this movie. It is iconic, but there is part of me that I'm like, get a better weapon. I saw this 100 times before I ever saw Candyman, so I do associate hooks in horror with this movie, so I guess they got me. The kills are not really anything to write home about. It is rated R, but it almost may as well not be. The best one is the first one, when Johnny Galecki's character Max dies. He gets stabbed in the throat and pulled across the table. Even that's nothing to write home about, but it's the best one out of almost nothing here. You don't really get to see much in a lot of them. They're cutaways, which is really lame. The director didn't want it to be overly gratuitous. Sorry, Jim, but it would have been better if it was overly gratuitous. It's especially weird because the ones who get the tamest deaths, the ones that we see the least of, are Barry and Helen. The ones who are actually responsible for the thing. from the beginning of the movie, like the ones who arguably could deserve these consequences. And they're the ones that we don't even get to see die, like especially Barry, the guy that we've all come to hate. Give us some nice stabbing action, but now we don't even get to see it. It's very tame, there's not a lot of variety. The coolest thing that is done with the hook is not even a kill, it's just the shot of the fisherman carrying Elsa's body away on the hook. That's kind of a gnarly image. Hooks are cooler when they're just like set dressing and people are hanging on them and shit. But when it's the weapon, it's just like, oh, I'm gonna slash you with the hook. Okay, the same as every other kill. And Max's death from the beginning was added in later. He did not die in the original version of the movie, but they realized that they probably needed a kill in there to keep the audience's attention, because otherwise you wouldn't get any until we got to the 4th of July later. But it also does work because they also needed to establish the true threat of the fisherman, because if you didn't have Max's death in there, we wouldn't actually know for sure if this guy was murderous, if he was going to go that far. It's possible that he would just mess with them and maybe try to get them to turn themselves in or something. We actually don't know. The fact that he kills Max shows us that all of this pranking is eventually going to lead to him trying to kill them, so it properly establishes the stakes. The problem is, why the fuck did he kill Max? What does Max have to do with anything? And there's a lot that you could come up with. There are ideas, for sure. Max was there that night. He drove by in his truck, so maybe Ben is killing him just because of that. Maybe he's not entirely sure how much Max does or does not know. Maybe he thinks they're closer than they actually are, so he wants to kill him because of that. Maybe he kills Max just to fuck with them so he can put a body in Julie's trunk later. Maybe he kills him because he said he was going to go to the police and he wanted to make sure that wouldn't happen. There are things you can come up with, but I think the script could have been a little bit tighter, because there are some horror movies where there's a killer who has a very specific motive and a very specific list of targets, but also kills other people outside of that. Like killing the cop and Elsa makes sense because they're in the way, but he went out of his way to kill Max, and you kind of have to put the pieces together yourself and make shit up as to why he would want to do that. It doesn't bother me that much because you can come up with those ideas, but it is one of those things where they needed to rework the script a little bit and it didn't quite come together perfectly. I really like Julie for most of this movie, but when it comes to the third act, I don't know what happened. I really don't. She doesn't do anything. She doesn't contribute anything to the climax at all, except screaming. Ray is fighting with Ben Willis. Julie pops up for no reason whatsoever, screams his name, which distracts him, makes him look over at her, and Ben Willis knocks him off the boat, which she then also screams about. It's like, you caused that. Why did you do that? So it's like, okay, well, that was a fumble, but now it's time for Julie to step up. Nope. Ray climbs back on the boat. Badass. He's cool in this climax, but I just want Julie to have something to do too. She's the main character. She keeps screaming. Ray gets knocked down again. So you think, this is the time. Julie will finish him off. Nope. She just keeps screaming. Ray gets back up again. The fisherman accidentally gets his hand caught in some rope. That's weird. Just kind of won by luck. Okay. And Ray's the one who pulls the thing that yanks him up, gets his hand chopped off, knocked into the ocean. Julie doesn't do a damn thing. I really don't know what happened. I don't know why Kevin Williamson wrote it so that she just falls apart entirely when the chips are down. Also, the ending of the movie is very stupid. It's very lazy. Sequel bait, or like the guy is still around. Ooh, isn't that scary? But it's dumb. It's not necessary. I guess it's fine because they made a sequel and it retconned the ending. But then that sequel ended in the exact same stupid way. But I guess it's fine because now they're making another sequel and it's retconning that. If the new one ends that way, don't. You must have learned your lesson after all this time, right? Just don't. What are the odds? You want to place a bet? Now that I think about it, I'm actually getting worried. Would they do it? Would they do it? Would they end it the same way? What do you think? I don't know. I also don't think the ending of the main story is that satisfactory, because the characters are kind of allowed to get away with what they did because the guy they ran over ended up being a crazy murderer. But like, they didn't know that at the time. There probably realistically should be consequences. But it is a goofy teen 90s slasher that's pretty cheesy, so you don't have to think about it that hard. You don't have to get angry at it. But especially since it's adapted from a book in which the person they run over is a child and they kill the child, that's way worse. And at the end of the book, they do decide to turn themselves in. Whole situation's way different in the movie. And so shit gets weird enough with a crazy hook man to where by the end it's like, okay, you did bad, but I guess we'll let it slide after all this shit. So the movie definitely has some issues. For me, I really just wish the kills were better and the ending was stronger, especially regarding Julie's character. But I have a lot of fun every time I watch it. I have a lot of nostalgia for it. I think it's very entertaining. Now we're gonna get to move on to the sequels. I've never seen the TV show. Not interested, really. So stay tuned, subscribe to the channel if you want to get my thoughts on those other films. Does I Still Know What You Did Last Summer hold up for me as well as this one did? We'll see. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Leave your thoughts on the movie down in the comments, your history with it, how much you like it, if you agree or disagree with anything that I said here. What do you think they're going to do with the new one? Let's talk about it down there. Thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.